So yeah, a pretty close spot. I hope I've explained that well enough. I guess the key points of this river are when we check back the turn, we almost never have a flush. So by him betting and shoving, we can, if we can't ever call with worse than a flush down, then we have to fold. So he can bluff here 100%. The other thing is how many value hands can bet call the river? Well, given that we've checked back the turn, I was thinking about the fact that given that we can't have a flush, he may have a value hand that doesn't believe our river raise and calls. So yeah, maybe doing what I did is the way to go, even though it seems a little crazy to raise fold a hand as good as this heads up. But yeah, I think that is maybe the way to go, but I'm kind of thinking, and I'm kind of pretty unsure as to what I like the most here again. So a lot of folds. Here we open the king 4 suited, and he 3-bets, decides to 4-bet, and he lets it go. Just c-bet the queen 9. Here with the queen 7, decide to 4-bet again. He's been 3-betting pretty relentlessly, but this time he decides to go with it. So here with the king 5 suited, decide to call and check raise the flop. I think with this stack size, we have some options. We can either bet and shove the river. I think that's probably pretty standard. We could try and check shove the turn against a perceived float that bet calls the flop. But yeah, I think either way is good. I decide to go with the latter and just check shove the turn. I think that when we check raise this flop, he knows that we have a pretty polarized range, and could therefore just be floating to try and take it away on the turn. I think that's what he did. Here I get myself into trouble. Given that we've been checking back a lot of flops, I think that this is another one that we probably should be checking back. He's been fairly attacking on the turns when we have checked back, so I think that this is fine for me to just check it and take and probably call down. But instead I put myself into trouble by c-betting. We get check raised. I decide to call. Pretty ugly looking turn, and he double barrels here. I think a lot of his bluff, I think he is going to be check raising all of his flush draws. Yeah, we beat maybe a kind of complete air in 6-7 or something like this. But I feel like there's a decent chance when he goes this sizing that he kind of is giving us rope to continue. And we do continue. I was hoping I'd fold there. I think looking at it now, this is a turn card I should just be giving up on. I felt in game that when we continue here, we can still have flushes, and we obviously have to have a pretty strong range, and therefore he isn't all that likely to bluff us on the river. We can certainly still have kings here and flushes. So maybe when I think about it more, calling there is fine. But it does 4 flush, and we do fold, and he shows us the queen 7. So well played him. So yeah, I kind of like my call looking back on the turn, and feel that I'm not sure if he's bluffing a non-diamond here, given what should look relatively strong range. So yeah, just well played him. Maybe I got a little unlucky with the river diamond. Maybe I should man up and call the river, but feels like no reason for him to not have it. So I think we've just got to tip our hat and say well played him. Here we defend the ace-6 off, and he checks back the flop. We check call the turn, and check call the river. And I mean, he can be value betting 9 there, maybe a good 8, but there's a lot of hands that have picked up maybe some equity like this one on the turn, and we've seen that he's prepared to continue in maybe situations other people wouldn't. We turn our ace this time, and double barrel, turn and river, and he calls us down 7s. Maybe slightly surprised he didn't 3-bet to 5-bet shove the 7s heads up there. Here I do 3-bet the sixes to 5-bet shove them, given how much pre-flop aggression there's been. But he does just call, and we get a pretty horrible flop. And I just decide to check fold. I don't get the impression a queen jack suited kind of board is a board he's likely to give up on all that often. I think I'm just getting rid of chips by c-betting there. So here with the ace king suited, he donk bets, which is a first. I decide to float one, pretty ugly looking turn, so we just decide to give up on the turn. Don't know how I feel about a third barrel here. I think that we'd have to go pretty big to rep a flush. I mean, we could maybe go small with a king, like 180, so it could look credible. I think his most likely hand is a kind of 7-8, something like this, and it's just, is he going to really want to fold? And it's been a pretty sort of stubborn battle so far, so I just decide to preserve and give up. And he has pocket sevens, which I'm not too sure if we could have got him off. Here we 3-bet the queen 7 off and c-bet. Double barrel when we pick up a double gut shot, and river our queen. Again here seems very much like a kind of 6-7, 9-8 perhaps, maybe a missed flush draw, which is the argument for checking, but I think that there's still probably more hands that he has for value, so I think I prefer just shoving here and hopefully getting a hero call, but he does let it go. Here we 3-bet the queen 7 suited again, and pretty similar looking board, pick up our double gut shot and decide again to double barrel, and he raises. I feel like this is likely to be a bluff. I feel like he kind of feels like he's allowed to rep the diamonds here, and therefore, yeah, I just don't really believe him here. I just think that he's going to be, he's seen what we've been, oh no, he didn't see the queen, has he seen anything that we've shown up with? Anyway, don't think it really matters. I just feel like he's getting a bit stubborn and taking a stance here. So I decide to click it back. And he calls, and we river our straight, which is nice. Although I still feel like, would he just flat our click back with a flush? Possibly, but I stuck with my original read in that I don't really think that he has too much when he takes this line, raising us on the turn here. So when we do make our hand, I allow him to bluff and just check and hope that he shoves. And he bets 750, and I don't think there's any real point to raising here. I mean, he could have pocket nines or something, but I decided to just call, and he has king queen. So a pretty creative line from him here to call my click back on the turn, and luckily for us, we managed to river pretty good. Not sure if I'd have been able to pull the trigger if we'd missed. I like to think that I would, but yeah, we managed to hit a pretty good card to be able to just check call the river. Here, easy call with the ace queen, but sadly his ace 3 gets there. Here we just raise fold the jack 6, and sadly no action with the ace queen. Kind of close spot here on the turn whether we want to double barrel against his perceived flush draws and 4s and 2s, or if we want to check back and kind of let him bluff the river. Decide on the latter. Pretty non-great river card, but don't think we can fold a hand as good as this. Sadly he does have the 4. 3-bet the queen 5 suited and take it down. And sadly he gives up when we have top 2 pair. So here when he check raises, I think there's, again, pretty polarised range. It's quite hard to have a queen, and I think that a lot of his other things, maybe flush draws check raise, but I think a lot of other things are likely to just check call. We do call, and he checks, and we take a stab, and he lets it go. Here we 3-bet the king 4 off, and c-bet pretty good boards. I think any ace-x he's likely to go with pre-flop and just stick it in, other than maybe aces. Just reshove the queen 10 off there for around 15 big blinds, pretty standard, I think. Here he shoves the king 5 suited for 11.5 big blinds or so, and sadly for us, he runners. Here we 3-bet the 7-4 off. Been relatively quiet pre-flop, and we get it through. Shove the king 10 suited against his limp. So here again, we decide to just back call his min raise here. I think that clicking it back, it looks probably lighter with the dynamic than calling. So do decide to just call, but he goes for another barrel. And I can float here and shove river, but it just feels like I'm giving him too easy a route back into it here. So I just decide to let it go on the turn and try and just keep chipping away. Here we 3-bet the 8-5 suited, and he 4-bet shoves, and we give it up. So this time we've flattered sometimes, and we've given up, I guess, some. So this time I just decide to click it back. We haven't clicked it back all that much, and he does let it go. Here we check back, and obviously bet turn and river, and luckily for us, get called down by the 10. And sadly for us, we don't improve, and he has an 8. I think he could potentially, maybe we have enough aces that he doesn't want to value bet a hand like that. Here we 3-bet the 10-6 off, and he clicks it back, which I'm not sure quite with 14x behind what this means. I think probably that he's not going to be folding, putting that percentage of his stack in. Maybe he has like a small pair and he's trying to make it look as monstrous as he can, but kind of a bit unsure. And here we 4-bet shove the queen 10 off, and this time we did have an induce, but we hit our queen, luckily for us, and that is the tournament. So pretty epic heads-up battle, and maybe I went over that a bit too quick, but there are certainly other people on this site that will give you more help heads up than I will. So feel like, there are going to be situations where we want to where I kind of talked about calling against polarized check raises, and sometimes we want to click them back. Maybe if we have less equity, it's maybe fine to click it back maybe slightly more than we want to just be calling check raises. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back soon. Cheers, guys.